Chess Diagnostic.
Hello everybody, welcome to Chess Diagnostic. This is Andrew, and this is my favorite chess games number 2. This is a game played a long time ago in 1834 between Alexander McDonnell and Louis Charles Mahe de la Bourdonnais. A very famous game. It gets almost ridiculous towards the end. So, whereas the black side, which is the winning side, de la Bourdonnais, and it starts with e4, c5, knight to f3, knight to c6, d4, pawn takes, knight takes, and with e5, now normally with this move they'll go into the Pelican variation, but we actually get the Lowenthal variation, where both players just play in the center. So we get some minor piece development, and now black's ready to castle. Instead, he pushes in the center to gain this pawn center mass. White makes a slight inaccuracy by giving up his bishop. Now black has the bishop pair and a slight advantage because of his dominance in the center. Bishop moves back, castle, castle. And now he's planning to, of course, push this bishop away and eventually bring his bishop out. So he takes the pawn, brings his rook to prevent that fork. And now it looks like we can push this pawn, but of course this pawn's unprotected, so we have to move it forward. And now we get c4 to prevent this bishop from cutting along this diagonal. So the queen comes up, bishop comes back. Of course, we can't take that pawn because of this check discovery, and we lose our queen. Let's go back here. So after the bishop moves back, de la Bourdonnais develops his own bishops, and now with the bishop pair and these pawns, he has almost a -1 advantage. We still can't take this pawn because if we do, then we're opening up our own queen side as well as this rook coming in and eventually winning our bishop. So he brings his least active piece, the rook, to protect the e5 pawn and prepare an advance. The knight cuts it off. Now de la Bourdonnais makes a slight inaccuracy, bringing the bishop all the way back. He should have brought it just to e7 to prevent this c5 push. Now after c5, the queen is doubling up, creating some threats. Of course, he closes off with this pawn formation. But now we can see that he corrects the error by bringing the bishop back to e7. The rook comes in. Now the computer's suggesting play here and then play in the center with f4. But it looks like de la Bourdonnais goes for a more complicated line, giving up the exchange with f4. So the queen checks, and now we get this bishop fork, or skewer, I guess, with the queen and the rook. But the problem is that de la Bourdonnais has the two bishops, and white's king becomes a little exposed after the bishop takes, and instead of taking with our rook, the bishop, we take the knight. Now these pawns become a decisive factor in this game. Trying to close off this bishop. Now, if the pawn takes the bishop, then we actually have a mate in 6 with the queen coming in and checking. So of course, this is just a terrible line with the discovered check, and now we'll be mating the king. So that doesn't work. Alright, we'll go back here. So after the skewer and this trade, he can't take this pawn. He tries to add another piece to protect his king side. But it's still very difficult after queen to e3. And he saves his bishop, but now he's preparing to push his pawn. Now we have a threat of queen to e1 check. He blockades the pawn with his rook, these 3 pawns are going to be pushed very soon, cutting off the defense of the queen on the rook. And now after the bishop takes, just preventing any complications, he starts pushing this mass of pawns with e4, blockading white's pawn with the bishop. Now he starts a direct attack on white's weak first rank. I guess you could say back rank, but it's a first rank. And the rook comes in. White is trying to just hold it down, but this mass of pawns is way too strong. So we get this crazy position with the queen and the 2 pawns. So white tries to attack black, hitting the rook and the pawn, but it still doesn't work because after rook to g8, even if the queen takes, we get a checkmate, so that doesn't work. The rooks here try to blockade both of these pawns, but now we have a real problem with d3. And at this point, if you want to guess a move, black takes the rook, pushes his pawn, and at this point McDonnell resigned because there's no way to stop all of these pawns from queening. An amazing game by De La Bourdonnais indeed. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe for future videos. See you in the future.